Happy full moon of summer. This yin yoga sequence will do a lot to restore and just relax and create a nice easeful feeling throughout the body. Midsummer, I feel like I've heard that energy is being zapped. All of a sudden, we've been go, 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 and we now don't feel like we have a ton of energy. So maybe you can find a nice quiet corner of your house and get some nice soft props. If you have a couple pillows, I'm going to be using a rolled up blanket for tonight. That will be helpful. And then most of the poses are going to be laying down today, with few exceptions. So, should be a nice recharge sequence. And we're going to really work the whole body. We're going to work into the upper body so we can stay open across that heart meridian. Summer is all related to the heart and the chest and open. And then we'll work into the hips a little bit so we can get an energetic release of whatever's been building up so far this summer. And let's see, we're going to start in half corpse laying down on our mat. And I'll have this little tubular blanket within reach, and I'll have my block within reach, or your bolster if you're using that within reach. But for now, no props needed for half corpse. I love half corpse because in a really gentle way, it helps ground us in the mat and ground us in our body. And I like to rest my hands on my ribs and have my knees bent so that my feet are about hip width distance, but feel free to take some slight variations on anything. It's highly recommended to just tune in and listen. And if you're getting a certain urge to make an adjustment, the more we can kind of listen to that intuition, the better. And as we come to being really still in yin, notice if the mind is wanting to pick up all the things that you were thinking about earlier, the things that you have to do, and just energetically commit to continue setting that down. It will be right there where you left it to think all the thoughts, but really important while we're taking this physical rest, that we take the mental rest too. And notice your breath in the stillness. Send it all through the body. And listen to what it's telling you about what's going on, where there's tension, where there's flow. As you become more aware of the sensations in your body, if you notice that you're holding on to a pocket of muscular tension, see if you can soften and just really let the mat hold you. For our first pose tonight, we're going to come into a really easy windshield wiper twist. So if you have a block or a bolster or maybe that blanket, something small, you can put it outside your left hip. Before I let my legs fall over to the left, I'm going to bring my hips a little bit over to the right. Sometimes that feels nicer for the spine. And I recommend just keeping the feet at that hip width distance as you let the knees fall. Now my left knee has fallen into the block and my right knee is hovering, and that's okay. But if there's too much sensation there, you could prop that knee as well. If whatever you have underneath the left knee is so high that you don't feel anything in the pose and you want to feel something deeper, you could remove it or maybe choose a lower prop or orient your prop so that it's a little bit lower to the ground, allowing you to go deeper. For the arm, see how it feels to let the left hand bend or the left elbow bend so that the hand comes behind the head, and then our gaze will drop right and that right arm can come out like a wing. We're going to be doing a lot of twisting in this first half of class. So this one is meant to be slightly more gentle, and we'll go a little bit deeper with the next variation. Remember, we are conductive beings. We all need to recharge as well as release. There's always energy flowing in us and out of us. Breathe in what you need. Exhale what you don't. Let the knees come back to center. And you can let the left arm release out from behind the head. And it's okay to pause before coming into the second side and giving ourselves the time to really tune into all the acute feelings in the body or maybe sensational feelings as the aftermath of that first side. And second side, when you're ready, you may have to prop or take a slightly different variation on this side. Before I let my hips come over to the right, I'll bring the hips to the left. My feet are at that hip width distance as the knees fall to the right. The prop could be higher or lower on this side. And on the second side, it's my right hand that will come behind my head as my left arm takes that wing. Really give yourself the freedom and the gift to be where you're at without any judgment, without any kind of pressure or wanting to do more or have things be a certain way. Just like a cat taking an afternoon nap. Come out of the second side and return to half corpse for a few breaths. Now, as an offering, a twist with a little bit deeper of a variation, we'll take twisted root. I'll bring my hips over to the right, and I'll take my right leg up and over the left, more like wrapping, so the back of the right thigh is kind of pressing the top of the left. And then my knees will fall over to the left, adjust that prop so it's right where you want. And maybe this time, T-shape the arms, or you could take both hands interlaced behind the head and gazing over to the right. But if that doesn't feel good, feel free to gaze in any direction that feels right. There's lots of information and reasons why looking one way or doing one thing in a pose could be beneficial. And there's also lots of counter reasons where there could be exceptions to that. So learn to just trust the feeling of the pose. And if it doesn't feel right, just know that you're probably one of those exceptions tonight. We'll release from the first side. Let the arms rest out by your side for a bit as you bring the hips and the feet back to center. Most of the sensation of this twisted root is likely in the spine and the lower body, but we are starting to gently work into the arms and the heart meridian, getting a little compression with that variation of the hand behind the head. But feel free to ditch that if it's feeling too much. We've been doing a lot of it, and we have one more side of it here. My hips will go over to the left as my left leg wraps up and over. My knees will fall right. And then just choose mindfully the arm variation that works best for you. In Yin Yoga, we have to relearn that it's okay to do nothing. It's okay to have unproductive time. It's okay to feel like we're unproductive in the pose. When you're ready, release back through center and find your half corpse. For our next shape, we're going to roll to our right side and take a fetal shape with a little bit of a twist, figuratively and or literally. We're going to start by placing maybe the rolled up blanket or the bolster underneath your right side ribs, and it should be the upper part of the right side ribs, just below your armpit, but you want that right arm to be able to fall to the ground. Depending on what you're using for a prop, your head may come to the ground easy, or you might put your block there. And then we'll just let our left arm kind of be lazy, reaching up and over. If there's space between your arm and your head, you could wedge a prop there, or a trick is to make your head a little bit higher. And then it should fall more easefully, whatever feels best. Working with a little bit of compression as we're leaning into the bolster or the rolled up blanket and the right side ribs. Working with a little extension in the upper and overarm or left. Sending breath to both. Now, when we twist with the legs grounded to the ground, when we reach our left arm up and back, this part of the body will hover. So if that feels okay, try this on. The left arm will reach up, and then I slightly lean back with my upper body, keeping my knees down. My left arm will hover, and this will give a little stretch or a deeper stretch into that whole left arm, left side chest. We'll breathe here for a little less than a minute. Stay with me if it's feeling good. Retreat sooner if not. And as I let my left wing close, I'll roll back onto my right side into fetal pose. And just let the left hand rest for a few moments. And then we'll go to the second side. So I'll be facing away for you guys for this one, but your bolster or your blanket will now be pressing into the left side ribs. Let the left arm fall comfortably to the ground with the palm facing up. And we start with the right arm coming up and over the head. And if you'll join me in this upper body twist, the right arm will reach up and then fall back to your degree, to your comfort. You could also rest it onto something if the hovering doesn't feel good. And then close your wing and come back into a restful fetal shape. All right, and when you're ready, you can come up to seat. And we'll reorient ourselves for a couple poses in the prone shape. So belly down or facing down. And the first two are kneeling poses. So it can be really nice to open up a nice blanket, put something soft on your mat, maybe even take this to your bed if your knees are sensitive. And you want the blanket or the prop to be nice and wide so that the knees can come as wide as you like. The toes will come to touch behind you. And then we'll extend our heart towards the ground, extend our arms out. And they could be straight or soft and wide and bent, whatever feels nice. And I would like to work in a little bit of a neck stretch. So let's bring the right temple down to something, and that could be a prop if it doesn't come comfortably down to the ground. in this lightest time of year, in this time of so much doing, it's very young. And there's the heat that's definitely a factor, but also we're living longer days right now. And we might just need to find those pockets of time here and there where we can take a daylight rest, a rest where we're not sleeping. It could be yoga, it could be reading a book, it could just be sitting and watching nature. Very slowly, not moving too much, bring the opposite temple to the ground or your prop. So in the Through the Trees Nature Immersion Program, and in every age group and every day, it's really common for us at about 1 o'clock to take a sit spot. It's just a time a little bit after lunch where we try to be still, we try to be quiet. Could be focused on nature, or maybe it's journaling. But a yin moment, even if it's just for 10 or 15 minutes. For our next pose, similar pose, we'll lift the hips so that they're over the knees, and you might bring the knees in a little bit closer together. In this melting heart pose, the hips stay over the knees, but the chest melts down as we extend the arms. And just like the child's pose, they could be a little bit more wide with elbows bent. And this can be really intense for the shoulders. So you may take your folded blanket or your bolster and bring your chest to melt down to that. And depending on if you're using a prop underneath your chest, you may also need something underneath for your forehead to come down to. See if you can send your breath into your chest, the back of your heart. Hopefully you have enough support with props and ease where you can really soften in that exhale, letting your heart melt closer to the ground. When you're ready, we're going to slide ourselves forward, opening up the front of the hips, bringing the shoulders over the elbows, extending the legs back, and coming into our Sphinx pose. So you'll want to be right down on the mat. If you have your blanket and it's a little bit thick, you could remove it. If it's thin and it's not much of a height difference from your mat, you could leave it there. You could also bring something underneath the chest, which is a really nice way to help us keep our back bend, help us keep our heart open without our arms having to be too engaging, which is kind of tightening and strengthening the muscles in the chest, which is not necessarily bad. But in the Yin method, we're trying to work into the body in an effortless way. So the props can help us, and that includes helping with the lift of the head. You might bring the forehead to rest down on something. Right? We all need rest. And also, we all deserve rest. I feel like sometimes, we know in theory that we need rest, but in the practical moment, we maybe had too much planned, too much to do. Things happen, and we feel like, because of whatever reason, we have to rob ourselves with that rest because we need to be more productive. Right? So saying no, doing less is really a radical decision. Saying no. And sometimes it's saying it to ourselves. And we'll come out of our Sphinx to baby crocodile, which is a nice way to rest in a very gentle back bend. The only lift we have is where the forehead comes to the stack of the hands. see if in your baby crocodile you can send breath into your whole body. And if you're calling for a little bit of movement, it might be nice to do some windshield wipers with the feet, bending the knees and taking the legs side to side. One of my favorite cat nap poses, which can be really great, is half frog, a little variation on baby crocodile here, where we let one knee come up and out to the side. It can be a great counter to Sphinx pose or any back bend too. It decompresses the lower spine slightly. And when you have taken a few breaths on one side, you can let that left leg or whatever leg come straight and take your half frog to the other side for a few breaths. And this is a pose you can sleep very comfortable in. There's nothing wrong with staying in this shape for 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Okay. And let's see, we're gonna roll over and we'll take a few, maybe not a few, maybe just two, hip release stretches before we end class. So the first one is half happy baby. And what we'll do is from half corpse, where both knees are bent, I'll bring my right knee to bend, almost like it's reaching towards my right armpit. So not directly on my torso, but kind of more off to the side. And as that right knee bends, depending on how far it bends, you could hold it in place somehow. It just so happens where my arm is this kind of perfect length and I can hold my foot without stress or strain. But maybe it's your ankle, or it could just be that your right arm wraps around to the back of your thigh. And as my left knee stays bent, it kind of falls out to the side. So that feels good for my body, but you don't need to have that variation if it doesn't feel nice. You could also bring a prop to the outer left leg there. And in these poses where we work into the hips and we kind of pull the variation of the pose with the arm, sometimes extra tension can creep into the shoulders, the head, the neck. Those areas of the body are kind of used to and, dare I say, love holding tension. So just notice if you can soften there at all. As we do more yang things in the summer, we get stronger. And a lot of that strength comes into the muscles of the legs and the hips. So if you're feeling more sensation than you might normally do in some of these variations in the lower body, You're in good company. And both feet can come down, coming through half course. You can really feel how Yin Yoga acts as acupressure in the body, where it can temporarily block a channel of energy. And then when we come to a still moment after the pose, we feel the energy rush back into the body, which improves how that channel in the body works. And when you're ready, we'll come into that half happy baby with the left knee bending out to the side and holding wherever we need to, and supporting that right leg in a variation that feels good. Anytime we have a body part above the heart, it's considered an inversion in yoga. So this would be a very mild inversion. While we're working into the hips, we are getting a little bit of the benefit of what happens when we bring our feet over our heart, which is just to recirculate the body's blood, which can have a physiological cooling effect on the body if we're feeling overheated. It also has a neutralizing effect energetically. So it could be that a few moments in inversion can give us that feeling of being cooler, having a little bit more energy. Okay, both feet can release back to half corpse. And we'll take our last pose variation, which is figure four. In figure four, the right ankle is going to cross over the left thigh. And if you're on your mat, you might interlace behind the left thigh with your fingers. You could use a strap. If you have a piece of furniture that you can press into, such as the wall, you could orient yourself that way so that you're far enough away from the wall where you don't feel a super intense stretch on the outer hip. If your seat's kind of curling up off the ground, you might be too close, or to couch or to whatever. You could even do this into a door if you don't have a lot of wall space, but close enough to the wall where you do feel some hip sensation. You may also take your right hand to your right thigh if your right ankle is crossed over your left right now, just to help it track out. And only do that if you can do so without bringing too much stress into the neck and shoulders. When the back of the hips get tight, it can, or the lower back chain of the body in general, it can stress out the lower spine. So this is a great pose to stretch that dense connective tissue and the muscles of the back of the seat and the outer hip, which can be causing a lot of pulling on the back. So you could take this pose to even relieve some of the tension that's pulling on your spine, especially that lower spine when we're doing a lot of yang things. You say, oh, my back is killing me. And it can be these kind of other areas of the body that are just getting really muscular and dense from work that are pulling on our lower back. And we'll switch sides. So your feet might come to the ground, or if you're pressing your feet into a prop, both feet might come to that prop. And when you're ready, it's the left ankle that will cross the right thigh. And as you notice the sensations you feel on this side, it could be different. And remember to allow your body the variations that it needs on the second side. And as you release from the second side, you can let both feet come to the ground or both feet come to the wall. Now, if your feet are coming to the ground and you're back in half corpse, that is a lovely resting pose that really helps to reset the spine in a really thoughtful way. If your feet are coming to the wall, right, this variation, this inversion, which almost looks like a supine sitting position, is another way. Again, it's an inversion. We're getting the benefit of the reset of the hormones. It's really stabilizing for the spine. And you could do this with the back of your legs on a couch or a chair or a coffee table too, if it was the right height. And it's okay if the feet would be pointed up slightly, all the better. So again, take your final rest in half corpse, or with your legs resting on a chair or against a wall or up a wall. The arms can be wherever it's comfortable. And we'll just take a few moments to have that mental rest, to have that physical rest, and knowing that it's needed, you deserve it, and there's no place you need to be other than right in this moment. Before we come upright, you can take any last hug stretches, rocks, rolls that feel good. I like to give my ankles and wrists a little work, making some circles and movement. And depending on where you are, it might be easy to roll to a fetal shape and come up to seat. And as you come upright, feel free to sit on a prop or a chair, whatever feels comfortable. You could do cross-leg or hero's pose. And coming up right after those inversions might feel significant. So feel free to keep the eyes open if closing the eyes doesn't feel okay. And as you breathe, just notice you created so much space in your body and your mind. We'll bring hands to heart center, Anjali Mudra with gratitude. Together we breathe in and out. Namaste. Thank you very much for sharing this time. I hope you enjoyed your cat nap. Know that it's okay to rest. It's necessary to rest, and you always deserve that rest. So have a lovely summer and take care.